I'm in favor of execution. Maybe our entire team needs to be executed after tonight.
I bought this banana, I think, on Sunday. I'm going to eat it like a weirdo.
Big ass on you, little sissy blue shirt.
College football is back. CBS, I'll see you in court. College football is back. Ed Orgeron, Brian Kelly, and the sideline reporter whose name I forget. Should I get her name? I'll get her name. It's Megan. I don't know. Internet, come to me. Alyssa Lang, not Megan. Alyssa Lang. That's right. She ate a banana on the sideline because she said that she would and she wanted to go viral, and she did. Congratulations, Alyssa, on going viral. This is interesting to see. Your daily sports podcast about news, narratives, takes, and gambling. College football is back. CBS. If you want to sue me for the no dollars I make on this podcast, that's fine with me. We're going to talk about college football. We are going to update you on some things going on in pro football, including some contract stuff. Could impact your bets, could impact your fantasy situation, and might look into some fantasy stuff as well if we get to it. But we're going to start today with soccer. Hey, Nick, why are we starting with soccer? Well, because if you think that you love college football and you think that you hate your rival, you don't. Not compared to these people. Did you know in a international match between Brazil and Argentina that Brazilian authorities stopped the match to try and they attempted to deport some Argentinian players, or Argentinian, that's what it says on Twitter, that's what I'm going with. They stopped the game and tried to deport these people because they said they broke COVID protocol during the game. During the game, they stepped in and did this. So here are the facts as such as they are, according to something called EIF Soccer. There are a couple players, 5 players. They have been in England to play in the Premier League for the last 2 weeks. So they lied about that, knowing that they couldn't enter Brazil, these Argentinian players. They lied, like, we weren't in England. 2, the health ministry was alerted about the breach earlier before the match. 3, federal police went to the Argentinian team hotel to detain and deport the 4 players in question, but the team had already gone to the stadium. Fact number 5, Brazil's federal government negotiated with the International Association and Colombal to give an exemption to the Argentinian players, which was granted. Fact number 6, this was rejected, so they headed to the stadium. Upon arrival to the stadium, the officials and federal police met with the officials and told the match could proceed. They said they had no chance. They had been overruled. The match had already started. Fact number 9, officials and the federal police took to the sideline to chat with the Argentinian Football Association. After discussions with the Argentinian sideline, the federal police marched on the fields and halted the match. The Argentina players walked off the pitch. That's unbelievable. But that's not the weirdest thing that happened. Guinea versus Morocco was suspended due to a coup. Moroccan football players had to be evacuated from the country. So soccer wins. All right, college football's back. Soccer wins. What a week. International soccer. Great. So glad people cared that much. All right, let's get into some college football nuts and bolts. Ole Miss annihilated Louisville to the point where with 7 minutes left, we were discussing the ins and outs of standard poodle breeds with Reese Davis, who has a poodle, who apparently chases bears. Ole Miss looks great. The conclusion is that Matt Corral is going to be the first quarterback taken in the draft. It's just got one of those. He's got very Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield vibes. He's got a great arm. Ole Miss looks like they're back. I will say this, as an Ole Miss alumni, we have the best uniforms in college football right now. We have the hot, new, fun ones, at least as it stands. The Sunday night game, Notre Dame versus Florida State. Notre Dame allowed Florida State to come back into it. Mackenzie Milton was the story. He, of course, his knee. Anytime you have this thing, if you break and dislocate your knee, it's a vascular problem. Oftentimes, in intense situations like car crashes, the leg has to be amputated because if you don't free up whichever arteries are in there, you could die. So this happens once or twice a year, that kind of knee injury. It happened with a Saints player. It's happened with the Michigan player before. That kind of injury, it can kill you. People die from that kind of thing in like war and plane crashes and car crashes. So he fights his way back. He had nerve damage. He fights his way back. It was a big story. Then Florida State missed the kick. And that, of course, the most important thing from this game is that A, Mackenzie Milton played. B, Brian Kelly is a dictator who wants to execute and ethnically cleanse his team because they are the Fighting Irish. So I don't know how that joke's going to land. My joke was better than his joke. The problem with Brian Kelly's comments, he said, after the game that they need execution. Actually, our whole team needs to be executed or something stupid like that. The joke didn't land. It wasn't funny. And the internet is pointing out two things. Thing number one is that Declan Sullivan died on Brian Kelly's watch, which was not great, not undefeated with that kind of thing. And number two, everyone's saying in the year 2020, this like everyone's getting mad. He had to apologize and clarify his comments, which were a throwback to a very famous joke that the Tampa Bay Bucks coach made back in the 70s. Okay, I mean, that's it. I don't really care anymore. That's basically the entirety of the story. From a football standpoint, the Notre Dame-Florida State game is proof that rankings are stupid. Notre Dame lost their entire team, but they're ranked in the top 10. They're not a top 10 team right now. Perhaps they will be at the end. They're just not. Florida State is not an unranked team. Florida State does not. We're treating them as if they're Nebraska or Tennessee. They're not. They are in Florida. They're going to get some local recruits, and they're perennially going to be between 35 and 20, always, no matter what baseline. They had a couple down years, but that is the exception. Miami and Florida are the same way. They're probably going to be pretty good at baseline because they're in Florida. They're big schools in Florida. But we thought it was a top 10 upset because one of them had the number 9, which was unearned, and the other one had no number, so it looked like a big deal. There are players from both sides that are going to play Sunday football. One of them is just a little bit further ahead. In reality, it was probably like the 30th team playing a really close game at home against the 20th best team. On average. That's not, we're making it out to be exactly like Tulane, Oklahoma, which was a 5-point game, or like Washington versus Montana. Florida State is better than Tulane and Montana as a program. It kind of poo-poos the almost upset of the weekend by those two schools. Florida State almost beating Notre Dame is not exceptional. It just isn't. And it shows how stupid rankings are, especially because Ole Miss and Louisville didn't have anybody on their game that was ranked, and so we're like, oh, it's Ole Miss and Louisville. They're Power 5 teams. Ole Miss will probably be ranked, and this is most prevalent as the story of college football. The one that's getting buried in the lead that's getting buried is that UCLA looks pretty effing good. They crushed LSU at home, but that doesn't count. There are more LSU fans than there were UCLA fans. If you don't believe me, check it out. They play in the Rose Bowl. Nobody wants to fight LA traffic to watch college football. Sometimes when USC is good, that happens, but not really. Like, it's not. Without Pete Carroll and all those guys, nobody goes to USC and UCLA games. But UCLA, they played week 0. They played week 2. They have 2 huge wins. They crushed Hawaii, who actually looks pretty good. And they crushed LSU. They should be a top 10 team. Now, this is why we see why the numbers by the sides of your names are stupid. LSU had one. UCLA didn't. That should clearly be reversed. Louisiana Tech almost beats Mississippi State. They had to make the biggest comeback in program history to beat Louisiana Tech, but they can because they're the fighting Mike Leaches can pull that kind of thing off. Plenty of storylines in college football. After week 1 is usually when I place my Heisman bets. There are 3 players that are going to win it. Bryce Young for Alabama, Matt Corral for Ole Miss, or Jack Cohn for Notre Dame. Notre Dame schedule one more tough game, I think, but if they have receivers and stuff, they should, again, win pretty close to like 10 to 11 games if they play well. So I like Jack Cohn, the transfer. It seems like a transfer kind of thing. Matt Corral. And Bryce Young is actually probably the best quarterback in college football. We shall see. Georgia and Clemson played a very boring but very good defensive matchup. I have no comments on that game. I love the idea of defense. I don't like watching defense. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, I don't even have a metaphor. Like, it's like a book. Like I would like to discuss literature in class that I'm forced to go to, but I'm not going to do that on my free time. Like, it's fun to discuss The Great Gatsby, but I'm not often going to do that with the same vigor as when I have to. I didn't watch much of Clemson, Georgia, because it was boring. But it was cool. You know, I don't want to besmirch defense. The real winner of the weekend are team social media accounts. Ed Orgeron walking into the UCLA game. Somebody was heckling him, and this is funny. It's funny, and he got it shoved in his face, but it's funny. He said, we played it in the intro, I'm going to beat your ass in your sissy blue shirt or something. So then UCLA changed their profile picture to sissy blue shirt. Hilarious. Number 2, Maryland, they scratched out West Virginia, WVU, on their schedule and called it LVU. But the real winner of the weekend is Utah State, who are having a 97% win percentage for Washington State. Then Utah State came back to win. Shouts to Utah State. Mountain West is looking pretty good. So team social media accounts are on point. Let's move to some NFL news. As far as college football, just wrapping up the college football discussion, the weekend started perfect with overcast skies. Penn State, Wisconsin were the team that could throw, who completed 3 more passes, won the game. It was awesome. It was college football porn. How did it get overcast in September in Madison at noon with 2 teams watching a 4th and 1 conversion for 2 yards? It was like the biggest play of the game for a while. What an awesome game that was.
Once
College
upon
football
a time, there lived
all the
a
way back.
princess
Pro
with
football
really
talk,
long
shut
hair who was
up.
waiting for a prince to come save her.
Why? All right, I guess we'll move on to pro football. It's time. Jamar Chase, the 5th overall pick for the Cincinnati Bengals. They should have picked an offensive lineman, in my opinion. He is having the dropsies in pro football. He's also having the can't get opensies. Nobody wants to talk about that part of it, but he's dropped essentially all these passes to the point where they're running screens for him just to get him a touch, and he's dropping those. But don't worry. He addressed the drop balls, saying that the drop balls are a result of a lack of concentration. Fascinating revelation there by the top 5 pick. Did you know that if you concentrate on catching the ball, you're going to catch the ball? This is going to be a big deal. He's tied, of course, to Detroit offensive lineman Penei Sewell, who went a couple picks later. The Bengals picked a receiver, then the Dolphins picked a receiver, then the Detroit picked the best offensive lineman prospect in the draft, and so they're going to be compared. Do you want weapons or do you want linemen? You want linemen. You can get weapons anywhere, people off the street. Tyreek Hill was a 4th rounder. This is pretty clear. And now he's not Calvin Johnson. He's not Julio Jones, and now he can't catch the ball. So, that is what it is. Cowboys right guard and future Hall of Famer Zach Martin tests positive and has COVID-19 symptoms. Zach Martin is vaccinated against the virus, and he has symptoms. He's not going to play in the opener against the Bucs. If you are experiencing a breakthrough case of COVID and you've got one of the 2 double-dose vaccines, the likelihood that you would have had an incredibly difficult time with the virus had you not been vaccinated is usually pretty high. There are some data out there about that, so this is why you get vaccinated. Speaking of that, in the Ole Miss game, Lane Kiffin had a breakthrough case of COVID as well. Ole Miss claims to be, purports to be, and is documented as being 100% vaccinated. They have daily tests. Every player passed the daily test, which is not administered by the University of Mississippi. It's administered by a third party. The whole team is vaccinated, so they had no more cases. I want you to think about that. Duh. That's why you get vaccinated, because there was one breakthrough case. The game could continue. That's the point of the vaccine. Zach Martin, he had a vaccine. He's got a bug. He's going to get over the bug. That's why we get vaccinated. The game is going to go on. Dak Prescott doesn't have it. No one else on the Cowboys has it. Zach Martin, right now, it's no different than having the flu, except you're contagious to people who are not vaccinated. So if there was 80% vaccination in Florida right now, Zach Martin could probably go with the team, and they could see how he feels on game day. Regardless, that's why you get vaccinated. I digress. Mark Andrews, tight end for the Ravens, signed a huge extension. This is big news for tight ends. Tight ends are the most underappreciated position in the sport. The following tight ends have played in a Super Bowl recently, and they are all in the top 4. Zach Ertz, Rob Gronkowski, George Kittle, Travis Kelce. Anybody out there think that maybe you want to get yourself a good tight end? Just some thoughts right there. TJ Watt leads the NFL in sacks in 2020 and 2021. It looks like he may not play the season opener because he doesn't have a contract extension. The Pittsburgh Steelers fancy themselves the big man on campus, and they don't think that they have to pay players what they want to be paid. And TJ Watt says, you're going to pay me my money. The Watt family is incredibly good at PR, making it seem like they're hunky-dory, good old-fashioned salt of the earth boys. But no, they want their effing money, man. J.J. Watt did this to the Texans, too. How do they hoodwink people into doing that? Well, because they're, A, from Wisconsin. 2, they drink milk. And 3, the third thing I think you could probably figure out for yourself. Why they're not criticized for doing this, and other people are. What a fascinating thing. Who would have thunk it? All right, football is back. NFL kicks off on Thursday with the Cowboys at the Bucs. The Bucs are favored by more than 8 at this point, with Zach Martin going down with COVID-19. We're going to preview the NFL slate. We'll get into some fantasy football stuff. I'm going to make all of you people listen to me talk about my teams and your teams and whoever else's teams. Like, rate, review, subscribe, tell your boss, tell your friends, tell your family, put it on social media. I really appreciate it. We're going to keep this thing going throughout football season, see how I feel. Maybe we'll keep it going for a long time after that as well.